Throughout his campaign, President Biden thanked Black voters for continuing to organize and protect democratic institutions. He named several historic nominees to serve in his cabinet and chose the first Black woman to serve as vice president. Wednesday, he vowed to defeat white supremacy and bring justice for all.
A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism that we must confront and we will defeat.
With us now for more is Dr. Nikki Taylor. She is both the professor and the chairwoman of the history department at Howard University. Dr. Taylor, thanks very much for being with us. I want to first get your thoughts on the significance of what we are witnessing today.
This is a historic moment. Of course, Vice President Kamala's election is built on 150 years of preparation in the Black community and specifically among Black women. So it's absolutely exhilarating. It's a moment of deep pride to Howard, to me, to historians, to Black women, other women of color, to South Asian women, to women of Jamaican descent, because she's all of those things.
And you know, Doctor, there was so much symbolism from Vice President Harris, from her Alpha Kappa Alpha pearls to her choice of being sworn in by Justice Sotomayor. Why was it so important for her to incorporate those kinds of symbols and images into her ceremony?
One of the things I like about her is that she's deeply appreciative and humbled by the history and those who have paved the way for her. So in her immediate in our immediate past, it was Shirley Chisholm who dared to run for president, the first woman, the first African-American to run for president in 1972, the year I was born. And it was the audacity of that vision that paved the way nearly 50 years later for Kamala to step into her shoes. So yes, the symbolism was important. As myself, I'm a member of the Divine Nine as well. It was completely just surreal to see the whole ceremony, not just the pearls, the fact that she wore purple, which is Shirley Chisholm's color that she wore for her campaign. And in every way, Kamala Harris embodies the ideals and even the slogan of Shirley Chisholm's 1972 campaign, unbought and unbossed. That is what Kamala Harris is.
Doctor, you mentioned the Divine Nine. For people who don't know, explain what that is, because you know there are a lot of folks who are just learning about HBCUs and about the role that Black sororities and Black fraternities have played and the contributions of members to our broader society.
Yes, thank you. Many organizations, historically Black fraternities and sororities, were established on the campus of Howard University. And so Alpha Kappa Alpha was the first sorority. My organization was the second, and it goes on from there. Every significant Black politician has had a connection to the Divine Nine across history. In addition to Shirley Chisholm, who was a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, you also had Carol Moseley Braun, who was the first Black female senator. She was also a member of Delta Sigma Theta. You have several members currently serving in the House of Representatives, including Sheila Jackson Lee, who is an Alpha Kappa Alpha, and the list goes on. And it's not just the sororities. Many of the male politicians are also members of, whether it be Alpha Phi Alpha or Omega Psi Phi or Kappa Alpha Psi. So it's a deep history of Black organizations.
And we saw as well the Vice President leading that motorcade with the Howard University marching band. Tell us about the significance, for you personally, but also more broadly for historically Black colleges and universities.
It's a beautiful day for HBCUs across the nation. And we're all proud, but especially at Howard University. Our Black institutions, specifically our colleges and universities that were forged in a moment where African Americans didn't have the opportunity or weren't allowed to go to some of the more elite institutions. So these became our Ivy Leagues. Howard itself is at the top. And so it just means a lot. And like I said, not only do many of the most significant politicians and activists and writers and educators and intellectuals come from the campuses of HBCUs, but we understand the significance that these institutions held in terms of social and political spaces to groom a generation of Black leaders like Kamala Harris.
I want to get your thoughts, Dr. Taylor, on a new CBS News poll. It shows that Americans, by a 3-to-1 margin, say that Vice President Harris's election as a woman and a woman of color is a good thing. But when you look at this broken down by Democrats and Republicans, 90% of Democrats say it is a good thing, but then you have 32% of Republicans saying that it is a bad thing. What does that say to you, and what do you think Vice President Harris's role within the Biden administration should be as we look at these issues of racial inequality across a lot of systems in our country?
Well, it's not just that polling, but it's the history of America shows us that we have a long way to go, where there is absolutely a very large minority of our population that still is very racist. And I was actually shocked when President Joe Biden today used the word white supremacist from the podium. And I don't think I can ever remember a time when a president has acknowledged not just racism, but its highest form, white supremacy. And so we have a long way to go. And so that poll is just a small part of that. The events at the Capitol on January 6th is another aspect of the element of that history and that element in American society, whether it be the noose, whether it be carrying the Confederate flag, which is a symbol of Black oppression. All of that reinforces that we still have a long way to go. We're not yet to the promised land that Dr. King envisioned.
Well, the theme of this inauguration is America United, yet just 2 weeks ago we witnessed that deadly insurrection at the Capitol. I wonder what you think as a historian, what are some of the things that you believe need to happen now in order for the country to truly come together?
Yeah, well, there are lots of things that need to happen now. I think that we need to have a very serious national discussion about race and about the intersections of race and gender and even class, where today Black single mothers are some of the most oppressed, impoverished people in our community. And so the nation will only rise as high as its weakest demographic, as high as the people who are most oppressed in that society. So America can't ascend unless the poorest, the most oppressed and maligned of us ascend with it.
All right, Nikki Taylor. Nikki, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights and reflections on this day.
Thank you so much for having me.